Mayhem took place here at an area still cordoned off at a sporting event that attracted tens of thousands of participants and thousands of spectators from all over the world. Two bombs went off just seconds apart from each other at the finishing line of the Boston Marathon. The explosions were so strong that they sent debris flying onto rooftops, ripping off people's limbs, leaving 3 people dead and over 175 people injured. Despite all of the money the United States spends on security, it was a surveillance camera of a department store that helped pinpoint the two brothers behind the tragedy. Several memorials like this one have been set up throughout the city of Boston to remember the victims. The 3 people who died include an 8-year-old boy and 2 young women, a 29 and a 23-year-old. Over a dozen victims remained in critical condition for several days, many of them needing follow-up surgeries despite having had amputations. The 2 suspects lived in an apartment on the 3rd floor of this building in Cambridge. Now, they came to the United States, the 2 brothers of Chechen origin, back in 2002. The younger brother, Jahar, became a naturalized citizen on September 11th last year. The older brother had a green card, dreamt of joining the United States Olympics boxing team to get a passport. All of the people who knew them were shocked to find out that they're the suspects in the bombings. But there have been red flags surrounding the identity of the older brother for years. While some are praising law enforcement for eventually catching the 2 suspects, others are saying the FBI had dropped the ball. After all, back in 2011, upon a request of a foreign government announced this week to have been Russia's government, the FBI did look into the identity of Tamerlan, who was back then 24 years old. They intercepted his phone calls, followed his social networking life, his social relationships, but decided he was not suspicious and let him free. And some are now saying that possibly the tragedy of the Boston bombings could have been avoided if he was at least put on a watch list since then. After Monday's bombings late on Thursday afternoon, the FBI finally released photos of the 2 suspects. They ended up coming out of their hiding, killing an MIT officer, hijacking a car, releasing the person to whom that car belonged, and got in a car chase with police. The police officers said that the 2 brothers were throwing explosive devices out of their car and shooting. Over a dozen police officers were wounded as a result. Eventually, the older brother, 26-year-old Tamerlan, got out of the car to continue the shootout with the police officers. The younger brother stayed in the car, ended up running over his older brother, getting away in the car, which he eventually abandoned and was able to get away on foot. In the meantime, police officers captured Tamerlan and took him to this hospital in Boston, suffering multiple injuries. This is where he died shortly after 1:30 a.m. on Friday morning. An unprecedented manhunt for Jahar continued for over 20 hours, involving thousands and thousands of federal and local law enforcement officers. We're currently in Watertown, just several minutes outside of Boston. Now, law enforcement officials had established a perimeter in this area, going from door to door, trying to locate Jahar's whereabouts. Where they ended up finding him was just a block away from the area they were searching. He was hiding out in one of the houses in this area in a dry docked boat. A local neighbor, the person living in this area, saw a blood trail and led police to the area where Jahar was hiding. Now, a helicopter of the officials was also able, using heat signature technology, to locate Jahar hiding out in this boat, even though he was covering himself up. Now, it's important to note that a 2-hour standoff and shootout between police and Jahar continued. Eventually, we know that there was negotiating attempts because the officials were very interested in getting him alive. Eventually, they were able to arrest him, take him into custody. Following his arrest, Jahar was taken to the same hospital where his brother died. Also having suffered severe injuries, he has been undergoing medical treatment under heavy guard. Jahar was said to have suffered injuries to his throat, either as a result of a suicide attempt or the shootout with police, and has been unable to speak. He did, however, awaken on Sunday night and was able to sporadically answer the FBI's questions in writing. After a week filled with tragedy, shock, fear, and a mass lockdown, the city of Boston has breathed out a sigh of relief. But locals want to see justice and find out the motives behind the terror act that made so many question the illusion of safety they had been living under. Anastasia Churkina, RT, Massachusetts.